He's like crying, and he's like, I've gone through this much, I've got to go through with it. Blood sticking out of his gums.
Hello and welcome to the QUACKCAST. This is the Drunkduck QUACKCAST. I'm Ozan Ocean, and with me is Baines, Pitt, and Tance. Hello.
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 Awesome. So this week we're talking about children's literature, or children's stuff, TV shows, comics, cartoons, and why it can be crap and why it can be great, and why us as adults are good gauges of why a kid's thing is bad, as opposed to this modern, I would say it's a modern myth that adults can't judge stuff that's intended for kids in a good way. And I think we can. And I'll make a case for that in this QUACKCAST. But we've already talked about it in our Patreon video, actually, if you want to have a look at that. But before we get into this stuff, I have to bring up the featured comic. The featured comic this week was Small Gods, which I featured. A nice little comic. And I hope you enjoy me talking about Small Gods. Hello, I'm Ozan Ocean, and my feature for the week was Small God. In an ancient barbaric land, one man stands out as strong and good above the rest, Prince Ovan. Coming across the sight of a poor old man being harassed by brutal thieves, Ovan takes action and saves the old fellow, who then predicts Ovan will soon be king of his people. This is a tale of strife, battle, war, and blood, as the humans fight against the ravages of horrible creatures and the darkness, and revel in the worship of their new gods. The art is all digital. Well, it's not actually. It's pen and ink, and then it's digital colour. It's highly stylized and in full colour. Much of the story is told in images along with minimal text. It's an adventure fantasy story. Warning, there is some nudity. Okay, I hope you enjoy the comic called Small Gods. And this is a comic by Boy Faff. It's, according to the author, Boy Faff, the tone of the comic is going to change. He's keeping up with the comic, and the tone is going to become slightly different. So if you keep watching it, you'll apparently be rewarded. So it's a good idea to keep enjoying it. The story of Small Gods has gone through a few changes there of tone. We start off with Ovan wanting to become king, and then things happen, and he becomes king. And it's I don't want to spoil too much by explaining what happens. Actually, I shouldn't do that, but the story does change quite a lot as it goes, and the world of Small Gods changes quite a lot. So anyway, give it a read. Boy Faff, Small Gods, rated T. And that was our featured comic. It was called Small Gods, and every time I read that title I think of Terry Pratchett's novel of the same name, which is interesting. Maybe he took inspiration. So, Small Gods. Hope you enjoy that. Okay, so next up we have the featured music. Gumbels has given us the theme to Filaments, a Kerbop story, which I think quite featured. So this is a comic by Callaway, and it's rated E. The music is the mysterious dark shadowy reaches of space, glowing tendrils of pink gassy nebula, a dimly seen distant stars, shadowy pockmarked asteroids turning lazily, a happily little jaunty tune plucked out on strings winds its way through the gloom, spreading cheer and light. So enjoy this Filaments a Co-op story, Gun Wallace's musical interpretation. Take it away, Gun Wallace. That was the featured music, which was Filaments a Co-op story. Okay, stuff that's intended for children that's crap, and stuff that's intended for children that's good. The idea here is that that as an adult, when you watch stuff that's sort of apparently supposed to be for children, and you can recognize that it's just crap. You know, the modern idea is it's for kids, so, you know, what are you as an adult even talking about? You know nothing. Just let the kids enjoy it. Now, I'm saying, my thesis is that's a bullshit argument. You're an idiot for saying that. Because...
Stop it.
Yeah,
Stop being dumb.
Stop it. It's because this stuff is objectively crap. We're only foisting it onto children because... it's cheap entertainment. It's badly written stuff. The children are only able to enjoy it because they haven't seen these tropes enough times to get sick of these cliches. But as soon as they have, then they'll get sick of it too. So yeah, sure. This is empty entertainment in the way that feeding them like donuts and, you know, lollies, chocolates, and that is empty food for them. Not that it's not healthy, it's just that it's stuff you get tired of very quickly, and you don't get anything out of it. Like, they won't be able to go back to it and enjoy it. So you're not building up their store of you know, interesting mental images and ideas and like culture, basically. Because, you know, as a child, when you watch stuff, you're imbibing culture, and this stuff informs you as an adult. This stuff informs you as a creative individual. The more stuff you watch, the more enlightened and fulfilled you get. That actually happens, you know. Your inspirations and the things that drive you as an adult are that's those stuff you start off watching as a little kid. That stuff stays with you for a long time. And if all you watched as a kid was really, really bad stuff, you're actually losing out. So I think that's an important element to things. Anyway, so what I'm saying is that stuff that's apparently meant for kids and that you as an adult watch or go back and watch and can still enjoy, even as an adult person, isn't because, you know, like it hasn't got enough like a fluffy like it has got like a dearth of fluffy characters or simple themes in it that, you know, you are just apparently in this instance not turned off by it. It's nothing to do with the content, it's to do with the structure. So if a TV show like a comic, a book is made for kids and it has enough stuff in the structure in order to be able to be like to appeal to people of different ages, then it's a more advanced piece of work. Well, not even advanced, it's just a better written piece of work. And you as a child will get more out of it, I think. Mm-hmm. As well as when you watch it as an adult. Okay, sorry.
No, I'm sorry. Go on.
Oh, no, I've finished. You can...
The thing is that what people forget is that kids don't live in vitro until they suddenly become teenagers or adults. They live in the same time span and they share the same life that the adults in their environment do. So it's not that kids get exposed to life. So shielding, quote unquote, the kids from life by feeding them something that is completely disjointed from daily experiences, the emotions that they are going to be grappling with, things that they should be primed in order to recognize or even be able to communicate so that they can, either seek help if it is something that is generally on the risk factor side, or just connect and communicate with the adults in their life if it is something else. You should offer this to kids, and you will not if you just have them look at weird things that are completely separated from reality, or you teach them cause and effect that doesn't happen in real life, and things like this, which unfortunately is something that I see happening in material and content that is directed to kids nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying it didn't happen before. It's just that I feel that they treat kids like they are some sort of alien creature that has to be treated differently from the rest of the human race, and that is problematic. I would say. The secret in creating material for children is not to shield them from life. It is to just break down the concept, the stimulation, the stuff that they will need to be exposed to in morsels that are small enough and digestible enough for them to be able to process it and be able to talk about it with their environment if they ever need to or if they want to. And that needs respect. You need to respect the child, that it is a growing entity, a human being with perception and the capacity to understand things, not a little midget thing that walks around and needs a different language
Well,
or different stuff, to be entertained.
That said, you can have very easily multiple levels and things and layers, and in doing so, you can have layers of things that a child won't understand in a work, or they'll understand it in a different way. They won't grasp that meaning that an adult will. So it's like encoded information on different levels. So as you as an adult will get a different experience out of the same thing that the child got. But it doesn't mean, that encoded stuff isn't going to be damaging to the child, because the child just has not got the mental tools in order to understand it in the same way the adult does.
Or the knowledge.
The experience, yeah.
And if I could give an example to that, or if you have one.
Well, I was going to say the original Powerpuff Girls, when that first aired, that was very different to what it turned into later on, and it had a lot of grown-up stuff encoded into it, like specifically like the transgender character called Him, or ambiguous sexuality character called Him. Also the relationship between the mayor and his secretary. That was obviously, a very typical kind of tropey adult kind of relationship between those characters. But children would not understand that in the same way an adult would at all, because they just haven't got that experience of the world in order to think about things in those ways. So it did work out, and there was a lot of humor that had that adult layer to it because of that, all through those earlier series of that show before they simplified it out into something more childish. Anyway, go on, Tance. What was your example?
So this is it's a book by a Greek author that she's my favorite. Like I'm a fan girl. I have always been, and I will always be. Her name is Aiki Zay, and the book is translated into English, so that's why I'm mentioning it as a high recommendation for all ages. Mm-hmm. It's called Near the Railway Tracks, and it is about a young girl living near the railway tracks somewhere in Russia, in pre-revolutionary Russia, and it's her story and her coming of age story, told from her own point of view, and it's super fun. It's super fun for kids because she has all these. She tries to get away with not studying, or she tries to do her chores in certain ways, and like the kids really relate to the whole dynamic of I am a kid and adults are trying to impose stuff on me, but I also want to be taken seriously as an adult, so I'm trying to do stuff. And it is given in a very fun way. She also really wants to please them, so she tries to study to get into this very prestigious school for girls. And she gets this teacher who happens, you don't understand this as a kid because you don't know the history and stuff. But this guy is one of the pro-revolution people.
Okay.
And he teaches her the material because he's very educated and stuff. And they get him as a tutor for her. And he teaches her the stuff that she needs in order to pass the examinations. But together with that, he also teaches her social awareness. And then she goes into the school, and the school is very pro-imperial because it is financed by the imperial government. So she gets this sort of culture clash between what she was taught and what is being imposed as propaganda by the school, and how children are separated by castes rather than academic capacity, and a whole range of things that as an adult you see as the struggle of the social class struggle on one hand, and a social commentary on individual differences on the other hand, through the different characters, like from the teachers and all of that. Oh. But as a kid, you don't care about this. You only care about her story and the adventure she has in this giant pool with her friends, and they discover these secret passages and they hide there and they do stuff. And it's very Harry Potter without the magic, and that's a good thing, by the way. You don't need the magic. The magic comes from the kids. And when you read it as an adult, it is a very politicized book. When you read it as a kid, it is a very fun adventure, Goonies style, I would say.
Okay.
So you get different things from different ages, and I have read this book many times in different ages, and I always got something different. And that is how material for kids should be done, in my opinion.
Yeah. So it's a clever thing, but it has appeal to different ages. It's not like if you're a child and you're reading it, you become indoctrinated, or
No.
you don't enjoy it because you don't understand stuff. You do have something you can enjoy at the different levels, which is a good quality piece of work because it's very versatile in that way. So that is something you're feeding the child culturally.
Exactly.
And they can go back to it and keep on getting stuff out of it. And makes them a better adult.
And even if they don't go back to it, the reason I went back to the book was because when I actually learned different parts of history at school, then it just sort of had a light bulb moment, like, oh my God, that's what this guy in the book was talking about. Exactly. Now I have to go back and read it. So you get these little fun discoveries. It's a gift that keeps on giving, basically.
That is a good thing. That reminds
real world Easter eggs.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
That reminds me of when I was young and I was watching Ulysses 31, which is a cartoon with Ulysses or Odysseus in space and Telemachus and all his companions, and they're trying to find the way back home, to his wife Penelope and stuff like this. It's an obvious version of the Odyssey, but in told in the future. The thing is, as a child, you're watching this and you're seeing a fun sci-fi adventure with spaceships and aliens and all this stuff happening, but you're also being educated about the Odyssey in this. And later on, as an adult, when you see references to the Odyssey all throughout adult literature and adult movies and creations, because this is one of the founding pieces of literature of Western society. So it's going to crop up everywhere. Even not even in just stories. You're going to find the Odyssey in referenced in everything, in business text and news articles, and even in the scientific literature, stuff like that, because it's just so embedded in our culture. But so as a child watching that, you just imbibe this stuff without even realizing that it has those references that are so important and such a big part of our culture. So that's something that has a lot of worth, without necessarily being something with lots of subtext and layers. I don't think Ulysses 31 was that clever a cartoon from memory, but I have to go back and watch it to make sure, though. I shouldn't say that, but yeah, even just from that, watching it as a child, I still got a lot out of it. Have any of you guys had that? Oh, sorry.
You take these pauses and we think you're done.
Yeah.
How dare you about what you're going to say next? How dare you try to sort out your words before you say them? I was just going to say that sounds like something that we've had here concerning our old tall tales and stuff like that, and the way they get passed down now through some movies and cartoons and stuff, and even in school, like the things you learn about like Johnny Appleseed and stuff like that, and you see him portrayed in cartoons and stuff, but we often don't know like the real stories behind those characters. They kind of evolve over time and stuff, which is a different thing altogether. But I guess it's just the way you're talking about the way this cartoon kind of introduced you to the Odyssey in this light version. Maybe it wasn't light, but it just kind of reminded me of how we pass down some of our old like frontier day tall tales now for kids, and they have like the kid version where kids still get like the morals and the stories out of them and stuff. And a lot of times they've been super distilled, to get those morals out and stuff like that. When in reality, or at least the reality that these stories were originally created in, there's a lot more, darker tales and stuff like that. What was it? I think John Henry, he was the guy that, was working on the railroads, and he got, there was like a steam powered railroad, like spike hammer-in machine. And John Henry had the, and I'm explaining this because I don't know how much you guys would know about American tall tales, but he, the story is basically John Henry was the best at hammering the railroad spikes. And of course, hammering the railroad spikes in those days, in the frontier days, the railroad industry was a big thing, and it symbolized a lot of different things for different people. It was progress, it was the future, but it was also a symbol of leaving certain things behind, and everything else had to catch up. And so in the story, there was this, in the original story, there was this machine that was created that was supposed to be able to hammer in railroad spikes faster than any man alive. And so John Henry goes up against it, and John Henry, he symbolizes a lot. The old way things used to be, or manpower, or I remember in the movie version Tall Tale, he was black. I'm not sure if I remember in the story if he was black, but there's a lot of symbolism behind that as well. I remember in the movie that was created, I think he wins against the machine or something like that, because it was, a movie created for kids and stuff in the 90s. But in the original story, he works himself to death and he dies against the machine, and the machine wins.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Which is, a whole other kind of kettle of fish in terms of what you could say about what that story is saying. But
progress wins.
I guess I'm just relating in that. Yeah, I guess I'm just kind of relating in that. The kid version of that story now, there's still a lot you can get out of it. But it could be something completely different, I guess. I don't know. I fucking go on.
I hear you describe that. We used to be, for some reason, I don't know. But generally, American folk stories and traditional, I want to say traditional because I'm not sure if they are folk stories per se, were very popular here in Greece as I was growing up. Probably because there was a lot of pro-American stuff regarding the folk people's history and exchange, and not the politics. But another thing that was super popular over here as a book was Little Women.
Oh.
And Little Men. It was the staple book that you got for Christmas as a kid. Translated in Greek, of course. If you were a girl, you got the Little Women. If you were a boy, you got Little Men.
I've never heard of Little Men.
Anyway, I got both, thankfully. And actually, I got all 3 books for that. And I remember really liking the story, although, it has death and dying, it has all kinds of things in it and stuff. And then when I went back to read it as a teenager, and then as a teacher, because I wanted to lift some passages to teach my kids reading comprehension, I saw different aspects of that particular era. Like when I was a kid, I just wanted to see what happened to the girls, and I always liked Job because, of course, everyone likes Job more. for little men, I like Nat. In Greek, we call him Nat. I guess it's Nate.
Oh,
English.
yes.
So anyway, I liked him. But when growing up, it was more the historical representation of the particular era, romanticized or not. And even later than that was the existential stuff that you can find in the book.
Okay.
Which is why it made me want to read all the other stuff that Alcott wrote, which was hard, nice. And he bought the stuff that was missing for me as a present a few years ago.
Oh, fantastic. I saw the movie Little Women a while ago, and I was amused that Christian Bale is in it as a child. It was bizarre to see.
Really?
Yeah, Christian Bale as a little boy. Well, a teenager. It's weird.
Tiny Bale.
Yes, with an adult Winona Ryder. Yeah, she's brain twisted. Don't think of her as older than him. Just an aside there. Yeah, that kind of stuff is very enlightening and helps you grow as a person. Baines, what do you remember from your childhood as being worthy and maybe not so worthy?
Well,
Muppets?
It's all a blur, man.
Muppets and Jughead. Come on, those are your two main things.
There's definitely stuff like a lot of the stuff I really liked, that I've gone back to revisit, has a little bit of an edge to the humor, a little bit of a kind of an understated sense of humor, a bit of satire to it. You mentioned the Muppet Show. That's a perfect example, actually.
Yeah.
Loved it as a kid. I loved the sort of the music and like the sort of the characters based on actual musicians, for example.
Exactly.
Loved the band and the music that was in it, as well as Sesame Street back at that in the day. It was very like a lot of like really
actually
cool
yeah
music with a nice edge to it, nice kind of a funky thing going on.
There were layers in Sesame Street. There were
there were. I was captivated by that show when I was a kid, and I don't revisit it really, but the Muppets I've revisited as an adult, and it was good stuff. Some of it is not appealing to an adult, obviously, but some of it is. Like there's sort of like the idea of the show on stage and then the situation backstage. It was like there was a lot going on there, and in Sesame Street,
Yeah,
so
you got
that would be a huge one, like kind of something that's got adorable puppets or kind of fuzzy monsters, neat looking characters,
funny voices.
Yeah, funny voices and everything. And then there is definitely a layer.
There's a couple of layers there, yeah, because you've got like the showrunner, you got Kermit trying to make everything work and trying to put together a show, which is something you don't really understand as a child. You've got no real idea. You just think he's being silly and crazy and complaining all the time. But that's a very important kind of aspect of putting a show together. You got to make things work. And like you say, the musicians based on real musicians. And just as a kid, you got Mr. Teeth and that hippie lady character and Fozzie on the piano. And you just think, they're sort of cute things. But these are very kind of specific portrayals of musicians at a very specific point in time. Mr. Teeth, that specific kind of character is based on, the jazz musician kind of people, and that hippie drugged out lady character with the big lips, that is a certain kind of Stevie Nicks kind of character that is a particular trope that children don't understand. They've got no concept, no ability to even work out what that is at all. But as an adult, you watch that and you
I knew
immediately go,
Dr. Teeth and Janice way before I knew like Dr. John or Stevie Nicks or Janis Joplin.
Yeah.
Many, many years before I ever heard of those. And then you had like the show that's like, they're putting on a show, and then you have the two guys in the audience who are like saying this show's terrible. It's like there's a lot of like a stand-up comic that's failing and like being mocked by the guys in the audience. It's like neat stuff in there, you know. It's a lot more than just the single layer kind of.
Yeah, it's a little microcosm.
Yeah.
Exactly, and as an adult, you'll go and you'll watch like a talk show or a variety show. It's a takeoff of a variety show, the Muppet Show, and you'll watch that kind of thing, and that will enlighten you somewhat into. Or maybe you watch like as an adult, you might watch something like Larry Sanders Show, which is the same sort of thing but about a talk show, and that will enlighten you about that kind of stuff. The behind the scenes versus the on stage stuff that's presented to the audience. And it's interesting. It really is. And you think, well,
the Muppets got there first.
Yeah. And you think, why did they even think to do a show like that with Muppets for kids? That's bizarre.
Yeah. Awesome. And it also felt like you felt. At least I remember, because I remember my family, we all sat down to watch the Muppet Show every time it aired, and I felt like, oh my God, like I'm liking something that the adults are liking, and I'm so awesome. I'm jokes, and I obviously were not getting the same jokes, but we were all laughing at the same time at different things, which was awesome.
Yeah, that's neat.
Isn't that an awesome thing?
Yeah. I remember that was my experience with The Simpsons when it first came out. Yes. I was the first one in my family to start watching it. Well, I say that like I was still a little kid, so my parents put it on for me, and it was around the time we'd eat. And I remember my brother and sister even still talking about, like at first the rest of us weren't into it because it was just like some cartoon, but the more it played, the more it would be a family ritual to watch it all together. And there was stuff that we'd all laugh at, and then my older family members, I'm sure, would get like the more adult jokes and stuff like that, whereas I could laugh all the time about Homer strangling Bart for the 67th time, or that kind of thing. Or I remember, I think it was I can't remember, maybe it was the first episode, I can't remember, but I remember there was that one scene in particular where Bart was covered, he got covered in radioactive goo or something, or paint or something, and then Homer chases him naked around the house, and why you little? And that was one of my very first memories of The Simpsons. And it just became so iconic, So I think I don't think I know a lot of people really had that same experience that I did with my family and stuff, where there was the so-called kid stuff that I got out of it, and then there was that other layer on top of it.
It was very abusive back then.
It was, and it was genius to put it on around supper time, because then the rest of the family does watch it, and they're like, "Oh, I kind of dig this too,"
I remember the first memory I have of Simpsons is that episode where Homer accidentally discovers this either a cocktail that he makes completely by chance.
The Flaming Homer.
Yeah.
Yeah, and how the barman, I think, steals it from him.
Yes.
He completely profits and stuff. And I remember that this made such an impact on me. Like, I felt like, wow, people will steal your stuff.
Yeah.
They profit, and they will get away with it. And that was the night right there. And I remember watching it with my parents, and it was an experience again. And I'm sure that they saw a lot more in the episode, and they were laughing at a lot more places than I was laughing. But I remember being completely into it myself, and also getting this shock of realization because nobody called bullshit on that. Yes, this is the thing that happens. And I thought,
Right.
oh my God, this actually might happen.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, this stuck with me. Like I was thinking about it that entire week.
Yeah.
That that people will steal your stuff, the stuff that you have made. They can steal it and pretend
Yeah.
it's theirs.
Then the Flaming Mo was born. Yeah, exactly. He stole the cocktail and got the fame and everything. And it's, it enlightens you on the world of copyright and IP infringement.
And there's like a lot of deep stuff in that. I remember that show. I don't remember the first episode that made a big impression on me. I think the first one I saw is where Homer is groomed for to be more successful at work by this guy who comes in. This guy Carl, I think his name was, comes in and helps Homer project this image of success or something. I don't remember exactly what was going on. I don't think it was the hair episode where he magically is able to grow hair and that improves his life.
Is it Max
It was
Power?
something else.
Max Powers.
It was something to do with manipulating other people's perceptions. That show was it was shocking. A lot of deep stuff in it. Self-interest, like you're saying, and mob mentality, and just it's amazing.
There's even oh, go on. Sorry.
Oh no, you go.
No, you go. You.
You have a story, not story. What am I saying? You have a memory.
No. It's
you're
generic.
Where you're watching something and you remember yourself spontaneously calling bullshit on that narrative.
Ah.
It's a good question.
Probably, if I thought about it long enough.
Oh,
Yeah, when you
definitely.
start to become aware that it's just not right sometimes.
That this could never happen. Yeah, I'm sure there is. I can't think of a specific.
And maybe you were wrong.
Yeah, maybe.
It came to me while I was writing the article for today.
About witches.
Yeah. And it was that Wizard of Oz line where Glinda is saying only bad witches are ugly. And I remember myself, I loved the Wizard of Oz as a kid. I loved the music, the colors, a lot. But I remember that particular line, when I first heard of it, my knee-jerk reaction was that's a load of crap. That can't be right. But I'm like, oh, bad witches are ugly.
Bad witches are ugly.
And I was like, now you're just being catty for some reason. I don't know.
And you think about that. That's bad
I
writing.
remember thinking also, right on top of that, you're not that pretty yourself.
Yeah, Glinda.
Maybe that's where it comes from. Yeah, she's sort of projecting something.
Yeah.
What's with your name,
I read
Glinda?
a little bit of the book Wicked, and I know their youth was fraught. They had a rivalry.
I haven't actually read it.
I've read a tiny bit of it.
Oh, that's a reinvention of the characters, isn't it? That's like a...
Oh yeah,
Yeah, those are interesting, and that's bad writing. That kind of thing to say. Only because I remember one of the simplest things that a lot of TV shows did, and I think maybe they still do. It's a trope. It's the people who look good and really, who are really cool and come all dressed in golden armor and stuff. They're secretly the evil ones, and the ugly troglodytes. They're secretly the good ones. And that's used so often that it's basically every single time.
And actually, the one thing that I didn't like, I remember as a kid in Cinderella, in Disney's Cinderella, was that the sisters are actually ugly. Not that, like, their face is ugly. It's not that they become ugly by their behavior, which is what I expected from how I had been told the story, like, before I saw Disney's Cinderella. And I hated the fact that they were ugly as a caricature, whereas their mother was actually a pretty woman. She was just scary and had an evil look to her. But she was pretty, like, for an older woman, but she was pretty. And I didn't like the fact that her daughters were like a potato, that like she had sex with a potato. So that's the other thing I didn't like.
Yeah.
That's a good point. I don't think
it kind of goes against the whole point of the story in a way. Right?
They're just meant to be ugly on the inside. They weren't meant to be physically repulsive.
Exactly.
Potato.
That was never the point in that story. At least the way that it was narrated to me, because that's a universal story and everyone puts their spin on it and stuff. But I always, and now that I think about it, that's probably why I sort of kicked at the line from Wizard of Oz, because I was taught that it's the behavior.
Yeah.
That's who is evil and who isn't. So.
And I think that might be an example of, because something has that audience in mind, we're doing it for children, that we have to make it as simple as possible. I mean, that's not an example of them being lazy in the writing. That's them just being stupid and thinking, we have to simplify this as much as possible and make it so obvious that, we're going to make them physically ugly instead of making them emotionally ugly or intellectually or whatever. So, that's...
Whereas in Snow White, I had no problem with the witch when she was transformed, becoming ugly, because that was the perfect disguise. The whole thing about her was being pretty and being.
The mother, not the mother.
So the perfect disguise for her would be to become old and ugly, and that was fine.
And when she was beautiful, she was evil. But when she was old and ugly, she was friendly and appealing. You don't look at her and go, oh my God, that wicked, evil, ugly monster. You look at her and think, could pass for a kindly grandmotherly woman. That's why you go, oh God, what's this?
Expression studios. But otherwise.
Don't fall for that. Don't fall for it. She's not really as kindly as she's pretending. But you could almost see yourself in that role of what's the character's name again?
Snow White.
Snow White, yeah. You can almost see yourself in the role of that Snow White taking the apple because she's such a kindly woman, a nice lady with the apple.
Really well about danger. Like, don't take apples from people you don't know.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. It's coming up to Halloween soon, so remember that when a stranger offers you apples. It's going to have razor blades in it. Or they just shouldn't be offering you apples because that's not the spirit of the season and they're a dickhead. So.
Full-size candy bars are bust, motherfucker.
Well, I think we might be at the time, or like, is there something else you want to? Yeah, it's fine. If you want. Baines, you were gonna.
I'm good.
Alrighty, all right then. Well, this Quackcast has been about the idea that kid stuff that seems crap is crap, and if you're gonna do stuff,
talked about it somewhere.
yeah, if you're gonna make a story for kids, make a comic, make a movie, make a book, try and put some more effort into it. Don't bowderize it and turn it into Barney, because that's just crap. Make something good, because children are not idiots, and you're making something not just for them, but for them as adults. Them to be enriched as human beings. So yeah, think about, respect your audience. I think that's the real thing that's coming out here. Yeah. Even they're little tiny potato people. Come on. Don't grow into big potato people.
Don't let them grow into big potato people.
Yeah. Let them, branch out a bit more. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for listening to QUACKCAST number 497. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Ciao.
Ciao bella. Auf Wiedersehen.